Pop the hood and use a T10 socket to remove the 2 bolts that hold on the outer portion of the hood latch handle. Set this handle aside along with the bolts for reuse later. Remove the plastic clips that hold on the radiator cover, then remove the radiator cover from the vehicle. On the passenger side of the vehicle, use a T10 socket to remove the 2 inner fender liner bolts closest to the front end of the fender flare. Set these bolts aside for reuse. Pull the fender flare back. The fender flare is held on by a series of plastic clips that can be pulled off without using any tools. You do not need to pull the fender flare completely off, but just pull it back far enough to expose the 7mm bolt hiding behind it. Remove the 7mm bolt that was hiding behind the fender flare. Save this bolt for reuse. Remove the passenger side valance from the vehicle. The valance is being held on by a series of plastic clips and can be pulled off by hand. Release the plastic clips closest to the grille on the driver's side valance. This valance does not need to be pulled all the way off, just loose enough to be able to slide the grille past it. Use a 10mm socket to remove the grille's upper mounting bolts. Remove the grille from the vehicle. There is one connector on the back passenger side of the grille that needs to be disconnected as it's being removed from the vehicle. Unplug the connector underneath the headlight on the passenger side. Unplug the connector underneath the headlight on the driver's side, if applicable. If your vehicle does not have a block heater, you will not have this connector. From underneath the vehicle, use a 15mm socket to remove the 2 mounting bolts that hold each bumper support bar to the vehicle. There are 4 bolts total. Looking down from the top of the bumper, there are 2 mounting bolts per side. Use an 18mm socket to remove these 4 bolts. Remove the OEM bumper from the vehicle. Unplug the connector on the bottom side of the intercooler shutter system. Release the 4 plastic clips holding the shutter motor harness to the plastic scoop. Using a 15mm socket, remove the 8 bolts that hold the bumper bracket and intercooler scoop assembly to the vehicle. Remove this scoop bracket assembly. Using a 7mm socket, remove the bolts mounting the intercooler scoop to the bumper bracket, then separate the scoop from the bracket. Undo the 2 large clips per side on the scoop assembly, then remove the sides and shutters from the scoop assembly. Remove the shutter motor from the scoop assembly. Find the 2 shutter motor bracket pieces, then install the shutter motor into the bracket pieces as shown in the video. The bent fingers go inside the motor assembly and the 1/4" bolts are used to space out the assembly. Remember to put the protective rubber tubing on the 1/4" bolts so that your motor doesn't get damaged when it moves side to side. On the driver's side of the remaining portion of the intercooler scoop, use a utility knife or something similar to trim off the corner, as shown in the video. Use the OEM bolt that is just to the left of the driver's side frame horn to mount your bracket shutter motor assembly as shown in this video. Make sure the wire harness is zip tied up and out of the way so when the motor moves side to side, it won't pull on the wire harness and the wire harness won't get in the motor's way. Remove the 2 plastic clips holding on the rubber cover over the tow hooks, then remove the rubber cover. Use an 18mm socket and wrench to remove the 2 tow hook mounting bolts. Remove the tow hooks from the vehicle. Now you can reinstall the grille and valance by reversing the first portion of this procedure. Now take the OEM bumper and set it on a workbench or something similar. On each side you will have to remove the inner structure. There is 1 7mm bolt and 8 13mm bolts that need to be removed. With this inner structure removed, remove all the parking sensors. To remove the parking sensors from their mounting rings, simply spread the tabs on the back side of the mounting rings. Make sure to keep track of what position and orientation the parking sensors came off the OEM bumper so that you can mount them in the same position and orientation on your new bumper. Now remove the sensor mounting rings from the bumper. Do this by pressing in the tabs along the lower portion of the mounting ring. Make sure to keep track of the position and orientation that these mounting rings came off your OEM bumper so that you can reinstall them on your new bumper in the same position and orientation. Release the series of clips holding the main bumper harness to the OEM bumper. Then you can remove the parking sensor fog light harness from the OEM bumper. Install any lights you have to your bumper now. For round lights, there are no mounting tabs required. Mounting tabs are required for dual 40s or dual 30-inch light bars. Install the parking sensor mounting rings onto your new bumper. Make sure to install them in the same position and orientation as they came off your OEM bumper. If they do not clip fully into place, you may have to trim a little bit of material off of the tabs that hold them into place. Now carry over the bumper harness from your OEM bumper to your new bumper. You can install the parking sensors into their mounting rings and zip tie the harness into place. There are zip tie slots on the top hoop of the bumper. Find the supplied winch plate. Set the plate in place on the vehicle and use the supplied M10 bolts to secure it to the truck. Now find the supplied 3/8" hex head bolts and use 2 of those per side in the remaining mounting holes on the winch plate. You can now install your winch onto the winch plate and install your winch fair lead onto the bumper. Set the bumper in place on the vehicle. Use the M10 bolts and M10 washers to secure it. You have to reach your hand in through the side panel to start the bolts. Once all the bolts are loosely installed, align the bumper so it is straight in relation to the grille and valances and centered left to right. Then tighten the bolts to 40 foot-pounds. Install any cube lights you have for the side panels now. Follow the light manufacturer's guide for mounting and wiring information. Use a T10 socket to remove the 2 lowest inner fender liner bolts in each wheel well. Pull the inner fender liner back to reveal the 2 bolts holding on the inner liner mounting bracket. Use a 10mm socket to remove these bolts and remove that bracket from the vehicle. Use a utility knife or something similar to trim your inner fender liners to preference. Stand back and enjoy your new ADD Bomber HD front bumper. For more technical information or to browse our selection of products for all newer makes and models of trucks, visit our website at addoffroad.com.